Hey, it's James here from goodguitarist.com, and today I want to show you 8 practice hacks that'll speed up your progress on guitar. And really quick, before we get started, I have a free ebook. It's free for all my subscribers. I'll put a link to that in the corner because today we're going to learn all the ways to kind of speed up and optimize your practice. Well, that book has all the stuff that you're going to be practicing, so you won't have to think about what to do and how to apply this. Now, my first tip is to set it up so that you're constantly making small achievements, and that doesn't necessarily mean learning something new every day, but you want to do something every day that's going to make you a little bit better. Maybe you're working on a song that uses 4 chord shapes, and whenever you're switching to the D chord, maybe you're switching from C to D, you keep messing it up. So maybe you can take a look at the chord that comes before D, and then you practice that over and over again. You go C to D. And at the end of the day, you're going to be able to say, today I improved my switch to that D chord. Or at the very least, I worked on improving it. And that's a small achievement. And the reason why I think it's really important to do this is because it programs you to think in the way that somebody who's successful on guitar thinks. A big problem that a lot of people have is they compare themselves to others. And when you do that, maybe it's a friend, maybe it's some famous guy that you see and you think, I want to be able to do that, but I can't. And that can be really demotivating. So this sets you up to compare yourself to yourself. You just want to be the best version of you. You just want to be a little bit better than you were yesterday or last week or a month ago. You're going to actually be able to keep track of that and to know that you're better. And you're going to feel better about yourself for doing that little tiny bit every day. Now, my second tip is to re-inspire yourself. And I think about it this way. When you first wanted to start playing guitar, something must have happened in your life that made you say, I'm going to learn guitar. Something inspired you to get to the point where you went through the trouble of buying a guitar, looking up lessons on YouTube, sitting down with your guitar. You're watching this video right now. Something brought you here. It's that inspiration. Maybe you went to an open mic and you saw somebody who looked just like you and, they're standing up there and the only difference between them and you is that they were practicing guitar and, you haven't yet. Maybe you saw like Stevie Ray Vaughan playing, and you think like one day I might be able to do that. Something happened. I know for me personally, whenever I go watch live music and there's a really good guitar player, the first thing I want to do when I get home is practice guitar and like kind of figure out some of the stuff they were doing, So it's all about those moments that inspire you to play. When you're sitting at home, and you're thinking like, I should practice, but I don't really feel like it. It's tough to actually get down and do it, because the idea of practicing can just seem like work. So whenever that happens, what I like to do is to re-inspire myself. Instead of spending that practice time procrastinating and eventually accomplishing nothing except feeling bad that you didn't practice or that you never got the motivation to go, you might as well spend it looking up cool music stuff that makes you want to play guitar. Maybe you won't play guitar at all during that session, but at least you're going to fuel your passion and it'll make it a little bit easier to get down to business next time. Now, my third point is to track your progress. In my ebook that I mentioned before, there are checklists at the back of the ebook that, has all the chords, all the strumming patterns, all this stuff. And that's a good way to track it, and I've set that up for you. And for like all the mechanical things like chord shapes, strumming patterns, it is that simple. Once you start getting a little further along in your journey, you kind of want to keep track of it yourself because everybody has a bit of a unique journey. I have students who they'll keep a list of all the songs they can play. And, we can even kind of like rate it. Like, where are you at with this song? Maybe they're pretty good at it. So we're like, okay, you're like 8 out of 10. Maybe they're super good at it. They can play it blindfolded, 10 out of 10. And if they're not that good at it, they'll know like, okay, I'll work on this song that I'm rated like 4 out of 10 on, and that's their way of doing it, right? That doesn't work for everybody. Another good way to do it is to just write down everything that you practiced in a journal. You don't have to be that organized. You just open it up to the next blank page and you just put, oh, I practiced switching from C to G. I practiced this song, and that's it. You can put the date if you like, if you really want to keep track of it or not. And then next time you go to practice, you just look back at that journal and you're like, oh yeah, this is what I did last time. I'll just pick up where I left off. Not everybody's into like keeping spreadsheets about it, but something really simple like that is gonna do a lot for you. Now, my fourth tip is to make sure that practicing is sustainable for you. We'll be really inspired at certain moments and be like, I'm just going to play guitar like 5 hours a day until I can play like my idols. And maybe you do play 5 hours of guitar that day, but then the next day you're kind of burnt out from it, or maybe it takes a while before you get burnt out. You hit a certain point where maybe you plateau and you don't really know what to do. It's kind of like a tortoise and the hare sort of thing. Somebody who just plays a little bit every day is going to eventually outpace somebody who has these huge bursts of practice followed by periods of burnout. Imagine you practice 5 hours on Sunday, but then you don't practice for like 2 weeks. The next time you practice, you forgot everything that you did, right? So you kind of got to like remember what you were up to and kind of catch up to where you were at. Whereas somebody who just practices 15 minutes a day over that same period of 2 weeks, it might not add up to 5 hours, but you end up getting further because you're always pushing a little bit further ahead every single day. Your last practice session was just like yesterday or this morning. So it's easy to remember where you were and to kind of build on your skills instead of practicing for a long time, taking a huge break, and then having to kind of remember what you were doing. It's really important that you know yourself. Some people are morning people, some people are night owls. Like I've seen other guitar teachers say like, what the key is? Wake up every day and practice first thing in the morning. And I wonder how many people that's damaged, because I know personally, the last thing I feel like doing in the morning is practicing guitar. I'm barely functional until like 2 hours after waking up. And if I had to practice guitar in the morning, and that was the only way that I could feel successful about it, because somebody told me, if you don't practice guitar in the morning, it's just not going to work out, I wouldn't do it. And then I wouldn't be a good guitar player. So it's actually been proven that different people are most active. Their brains are the most receptive at different times of day, depending on who you are. So some people like to practice in the evening. Some people, they're too tired because they worked all day. It's all up to you. You should decide when you're going to practice, and don't feel bad if you're not practicing at a certain time. But at the same time, it is important to carve it out in your schedule, and just take care of it when you can. Even if it's like, well, I'm going to have a little bit of time after dinner, so that's when I'm going to do it. That's what you got to do. Now, my next tip is to create accountability. I always had this funny thought when I was younger, like in my late teens, early 20s. Whenever I didn't feel inspired to practice guitar, I would always think about how at certain points in history, people had no choice but to do certain things. You're like a hunter-gatherer, your stomach is getting hungry. You just have to go out and you got to go like hunting, or you have to go gathering, or else, you have no choice, right? Your body compels you to do it. Whereas, at this point in time, you just go out and you get food at the grocery store, and maybe you don't feel like it because you're not that hungry and you haven't really felt hungry for a long time, and it's easy to just sit around and procrastinate. We're at this really comfortable point in history where it's tough to get that natural motivation. And when it comes to guitar, this is an extreme luxury in the grand scheme of things. Nobody's making you do it. You do have to develop that motivation yourself. Just imagine like if somebody came to your house and said, I'm going to make you practice guitar right now. Maybe they're like a drill sergeant and they're threatening, or maybe they're like offering you $1 million if you practice guitar for an hour. I guarantee you would do it. It's all about having that motivation. We can't expect it to come from some external source. You do have to figure out how to get it yourself. And one of the easiest ways to develop that accountability is to get a teacher. One of the reasons why students improve is because they get to show their teacher something, or else they're going to be a little bit embarrassed. Like, oh, I didn't practice. It's always like whenever a student comes in and they haven't practiced all week, you can like see the shame on their face, and it's not funny or anything, but they're just like, yeah, I just didn't have a chance. It's just a really busy week, and totally valid reasons. I'm not judging at all, but I'm just saying they feel bad about it. And when you go to a teacher, most of the time they have practiced a whole bunch because they want to avoid that feeling. Another thing aside from a teacher is to learn guitar along with a friend. So every week or every couple days, they'll call up their buddy and they'll kind of compare notes, and be like, hey, check this out. This is what I've been working on. I learned this song. And their friend will be like, oh, I want to play that too. So they'll practice that and call them back a couple days later, like, I figured it out myself. That's why people go to music school, because they're comparing themselves to their peers. And I know, like I mentioned, don't compare yourself to others. But this is like in a friendly competition kind of way, once you've already got the ball rolling. It's all about, it's not about competing. It's about helping each other through it. Another thing, especially in this modern age that's just come up recently, is online groups. So it's not as much commitment as finding individual people, convincing your friend to start learning guitar with you. Like I have a community on my website for all the people that take my premium courses. I'll put a link to that if you are curious about it. My whole setup is like I have all these courses designed to help you, and they're full-on packages. And one of the perks is it comes with this community where you can engage with other students and also engage with me. I answer your questions on there myself. People upload videos of them playing and they'll be like, hey, check this thing out. What am I doing this right? And I'll be able to tell them what I think. But that creates a ton of accountability because every day these people are getting on that group and talking to each other and discussing their journey with guitar. And it really makes guitar a part of your life. I've had courses available for a few years now, but this community group is a new thing, and I'm starting to see people getting better way faster, and it's definitely because of that accountability. Now, we've talked a lot about practicing guitar, but there are some things that you can do outside of guitar that are going to make you a better musician overall, and this involves analyzing songs and working on your rhythm. And I have a few exercises that I'm just going to really briefly share with you. One is to write out the chords to a song that you already know. So say you already know how to play Country Roads. You put down your guitar, you print off the lyrics double spaced, and then you write the chords over top the lyrics. And that may seem like, like so what? But it is a skill that you need to have. Trust me, when I started teaching, I had to write out all the chords and stuff for a bunch of songs that my students wanted to learn. And that made me a way better musician. Even though I was already good enough to be teaching people, there's just something about it. And that's something that the sooner you start doing it for yourself, the sooner you're going to pick up those skills. It really helps you know what chord comes next in the song. It helps you not get lost when you're playing through a tune. Adding that pen and paper element, like say you're trying to learn how to play Country Roads or whatever, and you're just always in the chord shapes and the strumming, to just step back from that and focus on the whole song, the lyrics of it, and when to change chords, and just looking at it on paper. It's like when you take notes. It's been proven that when you're listening to a lecture, if you take notes, you'll take in the lecture better. It adds that other element to it. And I have students, like they'll send me their like practice regime or what they're working on, and they've written out all this cool stuff. Like I think like Dave recently, I won't say your whole name, he sent me some stuff and it was like, yeah, this is great. Your practice regiment is great. And the fact that you wrote this all out, wrote out the rhythms in his own way, it's really helping him, so to get some stuff down on pen and paper where possible is going to help out a ton. Another thing you can do is to practice clapping along to songs. You just load up a song and then you just clap along to it. Just clapping the beat. You could even try counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. And that'll help you just develop that steady, solid rhythm. You could even experiment being rhythmic. You could do some hand drumming over the song. Like for me, I started drumming on my steering wheel years ago. And like 20 years ago. And at this point, I'm actually pretty comfortable. Like if I have literally I can play a snare drum, okay, even though I have no concept how to play drums, just because I drum on my steering wheel. And in terms of like my rhythm on guitar, it's gotten so much better because as I'm driving, I'm picking up all these rhythms from the songs that I love to listen to. And then it's just a matter of like, instead of slapping a steering wheel, hitting the guitar strings, it's the same concept. And I'm sharpening my rhythm even when I'm not holding a guitar. Anyways, I have a couple more tips for you. I know this lesson's getting pretty long, but these are some really important things. This next one's related to accountability. You have to find an outlet. A lot of the time when people feel their progress plateauing, they're getting stagnant, they don't really know where to go from there. And generally it's because they don't have an outlet. They don't have a goal of what they're actually going to accomplish with guitar. I know for me personally, I hit this point after 3 years. I loved practicing and playing guitar, but I found I was just doing the same things, just working on my scales, practicing with a metronome, learning arpeggios, doing all that stuff. But I had nothing to actually accomplish with it. And I realized, why am I learning this? It must be because I want to join a band. So that's what I did. I spent a couple months finding a band to play with, and all of a sudden I had a reason to keep practicing these things. And all those arpeggios, I was like, oh, I could use that on this song that I play with the band, and it reinvigorated my practicing, my guitar progress. It was just massive for me. So when you have an outlet, it kind of creates deadlines. You join a band, you got to learn these songs by that rehearsal coming up on Thursday. So you better start practicing now, so you don't want to embarrass yourself at the rehearsal because you don't know the songs, right? As far as things that I see my students doing, the ones who are improving faster, they go to open mic nights. Maybe they're not even playing. They show up at the open mic night and they just watch, they just listen, they just visit, and eventually they get the courage to go up there themselves, just baby steps, getting into it. Once they start doing that, that's when I see the most improvement in the student. Somebody who just goes out there and plays regardless of their level, they just start learning more and more, and their level does increase from that. You don't have to accomplish this great point before you start doing that. It's kind of like my mom told me. She's like, hey, do you know how I learned how to swim? I was like, how? Her dad just threw her in the water when she was like a year old or something. And she just figured it out, right? Maybe you can do that with yourself, and you will get that sink or swim moment where things happen. Maybe you take the baby steps into it. The whole point is to just, find that outlet. Like my father-in-law, he has a couple bands that he jams with, and they just jam in his basement or his garage. They don't play gigs or anything like that, but it gives them a reason to keep playing the songs that they love to play. He even started learning to play piano so that he can play guitar or bass or piano depending on the song. And it's really sharpening up his music skills. And he loves doing it. He always talks about it. He has a blast doing this stuff. I've had students message me. One of them has a gig at the old folks home. So he just strums and sings songs at the old folks home, and they love it. And his repertoire of songs is massive now because he's always like, hey, maybe I should figure out this new song that I can play, because he's bored of playing the 50 songs that he already plays or whatever, right? I know it can be scary. It's scary for me. I still get nervous going up on stage, and I've played 1,000 gigs, but that's just how it is, and you'll find that once you do it, everybody loves it. Nobody's really judging you. It is one of the most fun and exhilarating things that you can do with your life. Maybe that's an exaggeration, but I feel that way. Now, anyways, I'm going to close this off. I just have one more thing to go over. And this isn't a very exciting practice hack, but it's really easy to do, and it makes a huge difference. And that is to create the ideal practice environment. Cut out a space in your home, where you can get down to guitar business. I find myself, I have a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old, and my wife, she's actually a really good musician too. And we don't have time to practice because our kids are always there, and they're always, needing us. Since having kids, we have moved into a bigger place, and I thought, okay, now I'm going to have the space. But guess what? The kids find you. They knock on the door wherever you're at, and they don't let you get into practicing. It's really tough to concentrate when that's happening. So I'm renovating the garage, which is detached from my house. And I'm literally going through the process of building a room inside my garage so that my wife and I can practice music, because it is that important to me and to my wife in our lives, right? You just have to gauge what's important to you. And for me, having a space is so important because I know where the real work is going to get done. As far as what to have in your space, it doesn't have to be much. Just have your guitar on a stand and maybe a little table to put your music or your device or whatever you're, practicing off of. And that's it. You want your guitar to be accessible. You don't want to have to clear the table, take your guitar out of the case, and do 5-10 minutes worth of stuff in order to practice. It's just one more thing to do before you can get down and practice. Whereas if you are just in the house and you just feel inspired, you're just I just feel like practicing, and then you can just go sit down and practice for 5 minutes without having to do all that setup, it's going to make a huge difference. So that's my last piece of advice to that'll kind of make your practice more efficient. We went over a lot today, and the fact of the matter is, guitar is a lifelong journey. These are things that will improve the process, But when it comes to knowing what to practice, and what to apply this process to, without a one-on-one teacher, it can be tough. And as I'm sure, one-on-one teachers aren't exactly cheap either, right? Like if you're paying somebody $50 a week, that adds up to like, I don't know, $2,000 a year. So to help, I've created a bunch of courses that cost a very small fraction of that, but contain years worth of lessons in them. And you can do them as much as you want. You can go through them over and over again. There's no time limit, nothing like that. You just have complete unlimited access. They have some advantages over in-person lessons in that way. You can keep doing the lessons. So if you're into that and you want to kind of have this step-by-step guide to just take out a lot of the guesswork, so you can just sit down and you can practice and you can be told like, here, let's try this, and boom, you can play the song. I have some courses available that are going to help you with chords, strumming, fingerstyle, bar chords, music theory, all sorts of stuff. I'm going to put a link down below and in the corner. You can check it out if you want to fast track your guitar journey. Otherwise, I have my free ebook. It's completely free for all my subscribers. If you haven't gotten your copy, it's there as well. And I'd love to hear if you have any practice tips. Just let me know in the comments down below, if there's anything that you have found has helped to speed up your progress. Otherwise, have a fun time practicing, and I'll see you soon.